So you think that you want to get started in real estate, but you are not sure if you can actually afford it. I just want to give you a little bit of background on this because you might just find that you can't afford not to. Let's talk about it. So today we're continuing the conversation with house hacking, and this really is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And honestly, it was one of the smartest things that I could have done as a first time home buyer. And we're going to talk about house hacking, but we're not just going to talk about house hacking and what it means and just dive more into it and talk about the 5 different types of house hacks that you could go after. How do you pick a style that fits your personality when it comes to house hacking? The features that make a good house hack property. And this strategy literally changed my life. So we're going to talk about how that happened. And because this topic isn't just theory to me, I just want to point out that like I lived this, I breathed this, I survived it, and I feel like it was able to help me get to the next point in life that was a goal for me. So I was able to thrive because of it as well. So let's get into it and let me share my story. Now, before we get into the strategy in general, let me tell you that this topic is important to me because honestly, I feel like you need to really hear it in a real way. Like life is expensive and in general, across the board. And I speak with people all the time as a financial planner, and especially those who are starting out or trying to grow and build their real estate portfolio and just get started. A lot of times they are in a conundrum where they're deciding, I want to increase my income. I have all these competing priorities. I want to increase my income. Maybe I need to go back to school. Maybe my income has finally gotten to a place where I want it to be and I'm trying to take that next step. What do I do while I try to handle all of life's regular expenses, like when life is lifing? And if you rent, certainly there's a time to rent. And in certain situations, renting just makes sense. But we're talking about for someone who's looking to get started in real estate. If you think about it, rent is very high right now. And I've been a bit appalled, just taken aback by how expensive it is just to rent. You could literally purchase something and pay less than what rent is going for in many places. And groceries, all of those things, certainly that's high. There was a running joke and maybe trend around eggs and eggs being so expensive. So life is expensive in general. And the thing about it is that life is going to life. And at the same time, we need to be doing some things that lay a good foundation for us to have a strategy to put into place. Personally, when I didn't discover house hacking, I wouldn't even have termed it that. And maybe it was a term then, I'm not sure. And it wasn't something that was necessarily trending. People were certainly likely doing it, but the reason that I actually got into it wasn't that. I didn't know it. It didn't have any kind of cool name. It wasn't even a strategy, if you will. All I knew was I didn't want to struggle. I wanted to have some type of control over my income. And I wanted to be able to grow some assets, get assets. And I just knew that was important if I didn't know anything else. My father, I had watched him own multiple real estate properties when I was growing up. Yeah, I want to do the same thing. So that's really what it was about. So that led me to when I first got out of college, I bought my first single family home right after I graduated, about a year after. I think it's important to know I didn't come for money. There wasn't a trust fund. I had student loans, just the typical college graduate. And many people graduate without student loans, which is excellent. That just wasn't my story. So I bought this house and I rented out one of the rooms. Simple as that. And that's what I did. I made sure it could fit the budget to rented out a room. And I was essentially house hacking before TikTok and Instagram made it cute. And I had a couple of different renters. One was a friend at the time. And then I had another renter that moved in. And every single renter, if you think about it, they helped me pay that mortgage. That was huge. And then when I met my wonderful husband, we got married and he moved into that property. We had our 2 sons in that house. So we were experiencing life disappoint at the same time. So that same house that I bought when in my early 20s, that same house became our first family. And that's huge. So you have to think about it. Life is going to life. When I'm talking to anybody about this, is but how do we make sure that we're doing both? Like we're thinking about our future and we're getting through current life. And so if you think about it the whole time that between getting the home, house hacking, and getting married, and then my husband went back to school, and then I went back to study for some license, etc., raising the kids, the same time the house was appreciating. The same time that life was lifing, the mortgage stayed the same, right? No one was increasing our rent. Our equity was growing in that home, and the home gave us options. About 3 years or so later, we bought another home because that first house gave us financial cushion to be able to do that. And so trust me when I say, house hacking is not just about saving money. It's about freedom. It's about your future self Good for you. And it's about building something that you own, even when life is expensive and unpredictable. Because one thing for sure is that time is going to pass. Another thing for sure is that life is going to life, and there'll be good times and ups and downs throughout the journey. And that's why I'm so passionate about teaching this, because if it worked for me as a young Black woman just getting started, it can absolutely work for you. All right. So now that we've set the stage, let's talk about the different types of house hacks that you could choose from. So the first type of house hack that we'll get into is simply the roommate house hack. That's what I did. So it's basically the easiest one, I would say, and probably fastest way to be able to house hack. Essentially, you buy a home and it has extra bedrooms, right? More than one bedroom. It had a 3-bed, 2-bath. Some people do this with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, whatever works for you. And you rent one or more rooms out, basically. No renovations, no construction, no complicated setup process. You're just renting out a room. So all you need is a clean room, a door that closes so they can have some type of privacy, and a reasonable bathroom situation. So I like when they can have their own bathroom, but at least it needs to be something that's easy for both of you to get to. You can share. It's shareable, if you will. And a housemate who pays rent on time. This is also how I got started. And it's a perfect beginner strategy if money is tight or if you want something that's very low risk. And that's how I did it. So now a financial planning tip, of course, we always want to make sure we're thinking about this, is you want to use the money that you save from having a roommate to help build your emergency fund. So now you've likely have heard of many of our other podcasts. You want to aim for 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses, with 1 to 2 months set aside just for home repairs. That's going to be important because things come up, trust me, toilets, whatever it is. That's the type of house hack that you might get into, is renting out maybe a basement or an accessory dwelling unit, or ADU is what it's called for short, that type of a house hack. Now, if you're someone who values your personal space, because listen, I love community, but I don't want you in my kitchen asking me about leftovers. That could be someone's personality. This one might be for you. If you think about it, if you're going to rent out a basement, it should be a finished basement, a mother-in-law suite, or ADU. That will give you privacy, not only for yourself, but also for your tenant. You might even be able to charge a higher rent because they have that extra privacy. And it's more of a natural landlord tenant setup than just renting out a room. And I would say that this is probably perfect for someone who wants some financial benefits, but still likes walking around their home. And I guess in this way, depending on what your stage of life you're in, you might need more privacy. It just depends. So you don't have to feel bad about it. It's just another option. A financial planning tip that I would say here is that if you're planning to upgrade a basement or any area, really, you want to break down your renovation list so that you don't go over budget. You need a budget. You want to break it down into must-haves, nice-to-haves, and can wait items. And this will help you from overspending and keep your savings intact. A third option might be a multifamily house hack. Now, this one is a classic house hack where you get either a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex. You live in one unit essentially, and you rent out the other units. And yes, you can buy up to 4 units using the FHA 3.5% down loan. I spoke about that in a different podcast. You can check that out. Now, this is the most powerful option for building wealth quickly. Why? Because your tenants can pay a large chunk of the mortgage. Yeah, plain and simple, they can pay a large chunk of the mortgage. The property is literally designed for renting, and appreciation applies to the whole building. That's huge. So some financial tips around that one. A financial tip that I would say would be always run your numbers, right? Like, you don't want to just get so excited that you get something that's too expensive, because let's just say if they don't pay the rent, you still got to make sure that mortgage gets paid, and you want to make sure it makes sense. Look at the worst case and best case scenarios, but definitely include those worst case scenarios. And if the deal still works, you're protected. Certainly can't hurt to run numbers. A fourth type of house hack option is a short term, like maybe you rent out to a travel nurse, for instance. My husband was a travel nurse, and we actually went to Arizona and took our kids there for maybe 4 to 6 weeks or so in the summer while he was a travel nurse. And we just lived there for that time. And we lived in a short term rental then, and it was a decent cost. You can make pretty good money from it. So think about if you're near a hospital, maybe you're near the airport, a college town, this work amazingly well. You certainly want to check it out and do your research. But you can rent a room or a basement to, let's say, maybe a traveling nurse like my husband was, a corporate traveler, right? And these people are going to give you consistent pay. Maybe visiting professionals, or temporary workers. Now, the income that you get on a short-term rental could be higher, but there's more turnover likely. And you want to make sure because not every area is okay with you having short-term rentals and they have certain rules around it. It'll be important to know that what's applicable to your area first and before you get started. And a financial planning tip for that would be use the 10% rule. Okay. Save 10% of your short-term rental income for cleaning, for supplies, and for turnover costs. That'll be important. A fifth type of house hack option could be a live-in flip house hack. This strategy is for the HGTV spirit warriors, if you will. The folks that don't mind renovating over time. Now, I am not sure. That wasn't me then, and I'm not sure that's me now. But certainly I've come across so many people that this works for them. And sometimes they might be pulling their hair out in the meantime, but they like it later. So you want to make sure if this fits, then it fits. Think about it. This is about your personality. There's no one or right or wrong strategy here for house hacking. So if you go with this HGTV inspired type of situation, you buy a home that needs some cosmetic updates and you fix it slowly while you live there. And then you can rent out part of it during the process if it's at least in a situation where it could be rented out. Then after 2 years, you can potentially sell it and or turn it into a rental. Now, a financial planning tip I would say here is only upgrade what increases the rent value or demand. If it's just cute, then it can wait. So what makes a good house hack property? We talked about a number of things. Now let's talk about what makes a property truly good for house hacking because not every home is created equal. These next features will make your life easier, your rent higher, and your tenants. All right, so for the first feature, a privacy-friendly layout. Look for homes with separate floors, walkout basements, or split layouts or clear separations. The tenants will pay more for privacy, usually. Another feature number 2, I would say, is separate entrances. This is a gold feature. Separate entrances reduce friction, right? You're not having to run into each other. They boost the rent as well, increase safety, and they make everything feel official. For instance, a basement with its own entrance can literally raise rents 500s. So that will be something to look into. A third feature would be extra bedrooms or maybe even a bonus room. So more bedrooms equals more opportunities for income. So a den, a loft, a finished basement room can easily become a rentable space. Maybe you have a 3-bedroom and you rent out the other 2, or 4-bedroom, you get to rent out 3 rooms. Think about it in terms of that. Another feature would be parking and location. That's really important that maybe you don't always think about. Choose homes with driveways. Maybe it's already paved or at least a designated area for people to park. Street parking, nearby transit. What about the location? That's going to be important in case the person doesn't even have a vehicle. In the proximity to major employers, that's something that's important, or major highways. Tenants care about commute, and convenience increases demand, and that could be highly beneficial for you. Another feature that could be important would be a friendly zoning, no HOA drama. Think about it. Some HOAs do not play. Like they will shut your dreams down quickly. So you want to check rules early. Are roommates even allowed? Is it such thing as too many people living there? Do they even allow parking on the street if they have someone visit? Are they going to get the car towed because their friend stayed overnight and if their car is on the main road? Are basements being rented out even allowed? Short-term rentals, are those allowed? You have to ask for all those. Never assume. You know what they say, we make assumptions. Always verify. All in all, I would say in closing, that's the breakdown. The 5 types of house hacks, how they work, what makes a property something that you should even house hack in general, what makes it a good fit, and why this strategy is so powerful. It literally changed. And house hacking is how I went from a recent college grad with student loans to a homeowner, to a landlord, to a mom who was able to get ahead and build real wealth. This is why I get so passionate about this topic, because I know exactly what it can do for your confidence, what it can do for your finances and your future. So if you want help figuring out how to house hack your numbers, think about it. Check out some of our other podcasts. I welcome you to listen to this again. Take notes, jot things down. And thank you so much for listening. And I'll see you on the next episode.